reconvene the Environmental Resources Committee. We appreciate those joining us electronically and in person for your patience. We are going to continue on with our discussion that we were having for item 5C1, the Tim Breland on behalf of Paul and Carrie Simonis, General Agriculture and Rural Residential, Town of Gunther. We were currently discussing flag lots and the information that was just presented to us from staff in this handout here. So were there any other questions in regards to the flag lots piece? Okay. So the second piece had to do with the application that was submitted, the information that we got from the town. So Garrett, do you want to provide some more information there as well, please?
Yeah.
A resolution.
Yep. So the resolution. Oh, wrong. Gotta get to where I was at here. Here we go. Okay. So I did reach out to the town of Gunther and explain, the situation and what happened at county board, and then they did send an updated resolution. Oh, where do we have it? Right here. They did send me an email. So the questions that were presented to them was, number 5 was the one that they did not check the box. Is there any potential for conflict with existing land uses in the area? Yes or no, please explain. And they stated, no, there's not any known potential conflict. Child is buying the home and land neighboring land is agriculture.
Okay. And no matter what recommendation comes from the committee today, I would just request that please be included as part of the county board packet for this month. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I think those were the main two things, if I recall correctly, or was there additional?
I believe those were the two, yes.
Okay. I did, well, actually, I should ask this question too, I don't think he's here with us in person. Is Supervisor Straub online? So I did invite him to this meeting with the idea that if there were additional concerns that he would have an opportunity to talk about them here as well. Okay. So with that information, we can deliberate further, but I still, would feel that it is a good idea to approve this, given the clarifications that staff have presented in front of us. So I think what would be appropriate is to make a motion that we would recommend approval and send this back to county board. Supervisor Ritter?
I will make the motion to approve item 5C1 based on new information from staff and forward it to the county board.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Stravinsky. Any further discussion? The other thing that I just want to add, Supervisor Straub had recommended review of the beginning of Chapter 17. I reviewed it, and I don't know what the connection was. That's why I was kind of hoping he would be here today to clarify that, but it is what it is. So motion's been made, and there's a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Those opposed, motion carries. And thank you, Carrie Simonis, also for joining us. I see you joined us online. I'm assuming if you had any questions, but we appreciate your patience during the process. All right, moving on to 5D1, review and possible action. Animal waste ordinance update, possible agreement with Village of Maine. Who wants to take this one? Did I skip one? Yeah. 5C2. Well, I mean, Al kept talking about the 10-minute record or whatever, and I just thought maybe I could catch up, but I wanted to beat it. Yeah. I apologize. 5C2. No pressure. Yeah. Amendments to Chapter 9. Amendments to Chapter 19 of Marathon County General Code Park. So, Jamie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. One of my staff's retiring, and they're having something at 2, so I was going to try to get there. No, I appreciate it. This is something I'm bringing forward. It did go through Park Commission yesterday as our meeting, but these are some updates to Chapter 19. Each year, throughout the year, we work with our recreation deputies and our staff when they get questions on clarification of our ordinances, and then I keep track and try to do one update a year unless it's critical to get things done. So this is kind of that concoction of those things that have come up through the year. But the first one within your packet, and I apologize, the initial packet that you received didn't have anything highlighted, but it is updated in there with the changes. So on the third, or under 1903, we added number 9, which is kind of the biggest one that actually came about because the city of Wausau, at the end of the year last year, approved an ordinance for 1 year with a 1-year anniversary date at the end of the year to see how things are going, where they are, in their ordinance, they put a restriction on drinking in their parks until 4 p.m. unless you have a special permit or approval, camping, that kind of thing, although the city parks don't have camping. So this was discussed a couple of meetings with the Park Commission to see whether or not it was something that we wanted to follow in line with for the county parks that are within the city of Wausau only. So this would not include all of the county parks. But the two that are within the city of Wausau are DC Everest Park and Marathon Park. And the reason for this is because the idea behind the city passing this ordinance, which went into effect January 1st of this year, is to address some of the issues that the city has, mainly in their downtown area, with vandalism, issues in the parks as far as making where people don't feel safe because of the day drinking that is going on. Also, some of the garbage and the, I guess, upkeep of the parks that we're trying to keep up with. So that was one of the reasons why this went into effect. So in past, when we've made some changes on the city side, Marathon Park is usually the next park that these items happen in because it's close proximity to downtown. So the Parks Committee did talk about this, like I said, a few times at length, and this is something that they feel we could try for a year along with the city, see where it goes, see what impact we have. We could have also, one of the things they discussed is whether or not we don't do anything in these county parks and just see if they're affected or not. But yesterday they did make a motion to include this first item within these updates, which would just make no drinking between the hours, or no drinking before the hour of 4 p.m. and after 11 p.m. in Marathon and DC Everest Park unless you have a permit or special event or approval. And the camping permit would include the campground as well in there. So that's kind of the biggest, I guess, conversation piece of the whole ordinance. The rest of the ordinances updates are just really clarification. So the next one is golf carts. We had some questions from our staff and our campgrounds or whether or not people could have golf carts throughout the parks. And we went off of what the state parks do when we included this, that golf carts, because they're not really street legal, like ATVs and UTVs are street legal, so those are allowed within the designated roads within the campgrounds, but golf carts are not street legal. Most of them aren't anyway. I guess if you soup one up, you can get one street legal. But this would not, so this would restrict golf carts within the parks on the designated roads unless they get a permit or written permission from our department. Like if they have a special event, big example is at the sports complex, golf carts are used regularly by the Hmong Festival and by our soccer association during their tournaments. It's how they get to and from. So we allow that during their permits. So that's a clarification there. The next update is quite a ways down under horses, and that is to clarify a question our staff had. We had a couple of Amish families come into Big Oak Plain Park this year, and our staff, nothing in our ordinance, talks about horse and buggy on the roads, and they wanted to make sure they were okay. And we said, yes, of course, they're okay. That's their means of transportation. So this is just a clarification in the ordinance that states, yes, that's a means of transportation. It is allowed in the parks. The buggy itself is not allowed on the trails, just like, ATV or UTV would not be. Plus, I don't think they could fit on our trails. They're too wide. But this would basically just clarify that, yes, if this is your means of transportation, it's allowable within the designated roads of the parks. And I think, the last one, going along with Marathon Park, another conversation that our Parks Commission had on a few occasions over the past couple of months is the issues we had in Marathon Park this last year with people not paying for their campsites, of us having to run down people, they're not filling out their sheets accordingly, and it's generally, it's a pretty large group of people, but it's generally your local residents of the county that are having day permits, not putting down their full information, not putting down their full name, not paying, partial paying, then leaving the campsite in disarray. We also had a lot of drug issues down in those campgrounds in those particular sites this last year. So our Park Commission had talked about a number of things with Marathon Park Campground, whether change it to RV, that kind of thing. They chose not to make any changes to the types of units that could be used in the park. But one thing I think that would help with payment is if we made Marathon Park Campground an online permit only, so that we don't allow the day use, the day slips to happen at Marathon Park. Very easy. Our online system can be available to anybody 24/7. Right now, our system doesn't allow you to register for a campsite within 3 days of that, just because there is a possibility someone has come in and did a self-registration permit. We can, because self-registration, if this is passed, wouldn't be allowed in Marathon Park, we can change that in our online system for Marathon Park only, where you can register an hour before you take residence of that site. So that would allow for payment to be received up front, and then our AFMs and our deputies that monitor this would have it right there in their system. They could look up to make sure the person that's occupying the site has paid and gone online. And if not, they can do it right there in front of them. But this would hopefully eliminate some of the issues we have with non-payment at that park. We don't have the same issues right now at Big Old Plain and Dells of Eau Claire with not payment. Really, it's just been Marathon Park. So those are the proposed ordinance updates that the Park Commission approved and recommended to you for approval and moving on to County Board yesterday at their meeting. So, any questions?
I have a couple of questions. I'm just playing around with the registration system right now in parks. But yeah, I mean, they just go through this, reserve what they want, and go from there.
Yep.
I had a question about the discussion about intoxicating liquor, whatever you want to call it, beer, whatever, earlier. It said it's allowed from 4 to 11, but if a part of their, what do you call it, registration or whatever, if that allows it to be outside the hours of 4 to 11, that's fine as long as it's included as part of that application, or?
Yep, so any
Okay.
shelter reservation would be allowed, any special event, any camp, this would just include the campground, because your permit that you have would be your permit to
Okay.
allow you to.
And then the other question I had was in regards to, actually, that wouldn't matter because of the buggy. Never mind, I don't have that question then. Okay. Any other questions? Supervisor Shafinsky.
Yes, I guess a couple of questions and perhaps also comment. Relative to Marathon Park, if you have somebody that's made a reservation, what then would the hours extend to for alcoholic beverages?
If you're at a campsite, it would be part of your permit. It would be
There are no
24/7.
restrictions.
Yeah. There's no restrictions with your permit.
Okay, okay. I guess the next question that I would have with this is I can foresee people using Marathon Park and having a small get-together where they have not chosen or did not need to reserve a shelter. You know, they had 2 picnic tables worth of people, and they just chose to use the park for a Saturday afternoon. They would now be in violation. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, if they did not get permission, if they're in an area where if they call our office and let us know that they're there with a group and they're not renting anything because there's nothing rentable, we can provide them, a quick email that says we acknowledge your group is there, and that would be approval for them as they let us know. But yes, if they don't let us know and they're not within a reservable space or part of a special event and it's before 4 p.m., they would be in violation. And that's one of the concerns we had when this was discussed.
How would they know?
It would just be whether or not our AFMs or the deputies are enforcing and going around and checking.
No, back up.
Oh.
How would a family that decides that let's go down and we've got 8 people, we're going to go down to Marathon Park because they live in an apartment. They're going to go down to Marathon Park. They're going to grill out. They take a cooler with them. They're going to be down there from Saturday afternoon at noon to 6 p.m. How would they have any idea that they are now in violation?
Well, just like with any of our ordinance, I mean, there's a whole bunch of ordinances for the city and the county that not everybody knows about. So it's usually in our deputies' practice or even in our police department's practice that the first time they go down and they address something with somebody, they would give them a warning and educate them. You know, we'll put out some educational materials as well, but we will not reach everybody. So it's a collaborative effort. It's highly unlikely that, and this was a discussion with the PD as well, it's highly unlikely that our police department will write a ticket for a first violation. If they talk to the people and they didn't know, they're going to educate them and they're going to, you know, let them know what the rule is so they know for next time that this is, you need to call and reserve something.
Do we have any problems at this point in Marathon Park?
We do once in a while, yes.
Once in a while. Define that.
Well,
Once a month, once a week, once a day?
No.
What is
so our issues
scope of
have
the
been,
problem?
so our issues have been particularly there is a larger group of people within the city that go between the gazebo, which is downtown, Kickbush Plaza, which is behind the library, Marathon Park. They kind of rotate through the area parks. They regularly, most of the time it's more at a city park, but they regularly, you know, have a case of beer at 9 a.m. and we have some very intoxicated people that early that then have heckled people walking past them, have made some areas of our city, including Marathon Park, areas where people don't want to go because they don't feel safe. Marathon Park is not as heavily had these issues because it's mainly downtown. The concern here is because the city parks are now have this ordinance, city passes, is that that group will move, or other groups, but that particular group will move to Marathon Park. And this did happen in the case of COVID when the warming shelter moved to Eastgate Hall over the winter. It was November through April. And we had a very large group of people that once they left the warming shelter at 8 a.m., they went and sat underneath one of the other picnic shelters and were intoxicated very early in the morning. And then along with that comes them not properly using the restroom. We have those shelters rented regularly. So then our staff was, you know, doing a lot more cleaning. And that is what the concern is and Rick can maybe add more to this, but that is what the concern is when the city is implementing this ordinance. What will happen, because they can't do it in the city, they're going to move somewhere else. The next place they're going to move is Marathon Park.
Okay, so the next question, and I don't expect that you're going to have an answer to this necessarily, is does Wausau PD, which of course is outside of our scope, and also Marathon County Sheriff's Department, have other legal courses of action to deal with these individuals? Because what I hear you doing, and of course the city of Wausau is outside of our scope, but we can maintain our scope in freedom of action, is you're proposing, and they have already decided, to limit people's freedom of action, freedom of association, freedom to use the parks as they see fit, where they are not infringing or on anyone else. They are not causing any problems. And you're doing that, and now you're proposing to do this at the county level because we have problems with a small group of people. Rather than visit the consequences on the people who are causing the problem, you are restricting the liberty of people who are not causing a problem. So my question is, does Marathon County Sheriff's Department, does Wausau PD have other ordinances, statutes, legal ramifications at which they can, you know, I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be one, but they can cite these individuals, they can pick up these individuals, transport them to Wausau PD, county sheriff, whatever, and deal with them that way. Do we need to infringe on people's liberty who are not causing any problem?
Yeah, so this was a very large discussion at the city level. This ordinance revision was actually brought forward to the city council by the Wausau PD, not by our department at all. I have the same, you know, very, very same questions as you just had when we took it to the city, because that is exactly right what you are saying. And my major concerns were more for, you know, like we have other activities in the parks where, like disc golf, a lot of times in Memorial Park, you know, you'll see a disc golfer with their little cooler and their thing of discs, and that's what they're doing. So yes, I have the same concerns that you do. And that was brought up and discussed very at length with the city. But like I said, this was brought forward from the Wausau PD because they did not feel that they have other courses of action at this time. We had talked even about, you know, public intoxication ordinance and stuff like that. But the ordinances that of that particular ordinance at both the city and the county level, as was discussed with the city at the council meeting, is very vague and does not give them the ability to enforce it like we may think that they should. And so I can't speak for the police department, and I'm not very
Well, I don't
good
expect
on that,
you to.
but that was part of the discussion. Yeah, it was a very lengthy discussion with the city.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest that we do not approve this and that we reject this recommendation and suggest that if action needs to be taken, that we would refer that back either to Corporation Council or whatever the appropriate legal authorities would be to determine whether or not the Sheriff's Department and Sheriff's deputies have the legal tools they need to deal with the individuals who are causing problems and not infringe on the liberties of people who are peacefully using the parks as intended.
So I have a couple of things. The first one is there any discussion regarding the other two changes regarding the alcohol consumption and the horse and buggy? Because those were two other elements, right?
There's four, actually.
There's four?
Yep, there's
Okay,
the
'cause
alcohol, the golf
then-
carts, the horse.
I just want to
And the
clarify then.
camping.
So Supervisor Stravinsky, your comments are in regards to is it the camping permit piece?
Alcohol.
Just
Oh, so the first one,
Alcohol
okay, sorry. Well, that
issue.
would explain some of my confusion then. Because I was looking at the camping permit piece, so I need to go up farther and reread this section. But how about this? Regardless, is there any discussion regarding the other three? Because I wouldn't say we recommend overall denial of everything, because if we're okay with the other three, let's have some discussion about the first one and then be okay with the other three. Is that fair? Okay. So
Makes perfect sense.
okay, so I need to look at this a little bit more. So no person shall possess or consume. So the concern that I'm hearing from you, Supervisor Stravinsky, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if somebody wants to go to a campsite, and grill out, park. Somebody wants to go to a park, grill out, have a few beers during the day, not cause any problems. Your concern is that this would limit their ability to do so, correct?
Correct. You've now made it illegal.
Except if it's between the hours of 4 and 11, and except if they have a special event approved by the commission. And at campsites, park shelters, or facilities reserved through the merit. So 9C, at campsites, park shelters, or facilities reserved through the Wausau and Marathon County Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. So if you don't have a campsite, right? If you just walk into Marathon Park and I go, you know what, I want to drink a 40 today, and it's 11:30 in the morning, right? I'm not recommending that, by the way. But I want to drink a 40 malt liquor at 11:30 in the morning. I walk into Marathon Park. If this is in place, I'm violating that potential ordinance, correct? Do we have any rules at any facilities right now regarding alcohol consumption? Like, let's say the soccer complex, right? Are there any rules to regulate? Really?
No, the only park within our system that we managed that had regulations before was the 400 block. The 400 block's
Yeah.
always been, you couldn't drink before 4.
Yeah. I'm interested in Supervisor Straczynski's comments because is this the correct method to regulate that? Because if they're being disorderly, wouldn't you be able to, and I'm not a sheriff, I'm definitely not a lawyer, I am not a sheriff, I'm not a sheriff's deputy, I'm not a law enforcement individual. But I find it, I mean, if somebody is drinking and being a jerk and, calling people out and everything, it feels like law enforcement would be able to say like, hey, you're being disorderly, we're going to write you a ticket. Depending on how unruly they are, they could haul them in. Like, help me explain like how this would be the correct remedy to that problem. And I don't want to ask you to speak for WASA either, because I get that you have to communicate this to us from WASA. So do you have any background on WASA's reasoning beyond the PD just going, we don't think we have enough authority?
Yes, there was extensive discussion at the council meeting where Chief Barnes, talked about their reasoning, because like I said, this was brought forward as a suggestion from them. So I can't reiterate everything he said, and maybe that's something that I encourage you, at some point we can go back and watch that meeting and watch his comments, or he could always come and talk about it too. I have the same questions of him when we talked about this at the council meeting even before, because like I said, I used the disc golf example, or even fishermen. We have a lot of fishermen that might come and dock their boat at lunch, have a beer or whatever, go back out. I mean, maybe they shouldn't be driving a boat, but anyway.
Assuming they're sober.
Yeah,
right?
or people, we had, fishermen that even fish from the shore at Oak Island that might have a beer. So these were items brought up. They were discussed at length between, my department, the sheriff's department, and city council. So all of that, it was part of that meeting, and it was a couple of meetings. I think we had to go to public health and safety as well as to the city council. It was not unanimous to allow this, or it was, not unanimous to allow this, but the majority passed it. So that's how an ordinance gets updated there. But they did put a sunset on it that it's just for this year. So we're going to see how it goes. So the city, like I said, has already passed it. When we had the discussion with the park commission, and it was on a couple of occasions because the same questions came up, one of the suggestions was, well, we can wait and see if the city enacting this ordinance affects these two parks that were within the city. And that's what we could do now too, is we could wait and see if we do have a major issue, then we would bring this back to the park commission, back through this committee, probably have our sheriff's deputies with us to explain, what your questions are, what their ability is, what their ramifications could be. We can always enact something then. We were thinking, the Parks Commission had kind of talked about being, more proactive in, if the city's trying it for a year, let's be consistent, because a lot of people within Marathon County have no idea what's a city and a county park. Like, they see our department managing all and they don't know which is which. So it was more of a consistency. Rick, did I miss anything from our meeting?
Yes, Rick, if you have anything to add, Supervisor Straczynski, I know you had your, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to put this ordinance on, but we are trying to cooperate with the city because they are the ones that are recommending this and seeing the problem with people drinking early in the morning. And these people that do come in early are mainly from the city. They are probably more homeless people too. I'm not sure. But I would like to see this go through and try it for 1 year and see, and then bring it back in a year and see what feedback we do get back from the public on if somebody does get a ticket or gets a warning, or do we put a sign at the front entrance saying that this is, no alcohol at between until 4 till 11. But I'm just pondering here what the city of Wausau would say if we didn't do this, but I'm not sure. And I know it's the city of Wausau, it's not Madison County. Correct, I know that. But we have control of what goes on in the park. But I always felt it was always nice to work with the city, because they do it. If you remember our water project that went through, they were going to shut the water off, and the city had the right to do that. And till we got the water park, now the water goes through the park. But anyways, getting back to here, I would like to see this ordinance go for 1 year. That's my opinion. So.
Supervisor Shafinsky.
Okay, thank you. And Supervisor Field, I thank you for giving that opinion and stating your thoughts on the matter. I mean, I definitely respect the idea where you're coming from. However, I look at this as a couple of things. First of all, let's look at Wisconsin. Where do we live? We live in the state of Wisconsin. Alcohol consumption, for good or bad, is part of the heritage of this state. Now, for the most part, 99% of the time, it is very responsible, and there are no issues beyond the individual, and that's the way it should be. In a free, open society that is composed of responsible individuals, you take responsibility for your actions. If you choose to consume alcohol, you do so in a manner that is responsible and does not infringe on somebody else. I.e., you aren't getting drunk and obnoxious and disorderly at 11 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning. The idea that just because the city of Wausau chose to take an authoritarian approach that says, well, we can't go out and visit consequences on the individuals who are causing problems. We are going to choose to instead infringe upon the liberties of everybody in the city and in the county to use these parks. We're going to restrict their ability to use these parks. That's, in my mind, is the wrong approach. And it's part of the thing that's wrong with that is it's a slippery slope. Once you put that ordinance into effect, how often does something get turned back and we say, let's stop and let's turn back that restrictive ordinance and hand that liberty back? Doesn't happen. Our job here and my job here, I believe, on the county board, part of it is to make sure that whatever we do so with the least impact on our constituents as possible to solve problems. I'm not convinced at all that the city approach is the correct approach from a civil liberties approach. And I certainly don't see them turning around and turning it back after a year. So I would definitely not want to see the county follow their example. It's a bad example perhaps well-intentioned, but it's going about it in the wrong way, and I don't think we should endorse it at any remotely. So thank you.
I'm going to add one comment, and I'd like us, Jamie, you have that retirement to get to. This is not your retirement, of course. This is where I'm sitting at with the issue. I really like the idea of Wausau PD coming and talking with us. I think that would be helpful. At least for myself. I know there's differing opinions that we have here, but I really would like to hear from law enforcement on this because that's my sticking matter on this. So, Jamie, would it be possible to invite Chief Barnes or a representative from the department to come and educate us a little bit on this?
Yeah, I think he would be very open to that.
Okay.
And I, as I was listening to the discussion too, I thought to myself, what I should have also included in this, and I think I had it in the Park Commission packet, was a lot of the other information that was provided to the City Council when this was discussed, such as there was a whole graph that our city attorneys put together where they looked at other communities and what ordinance other communities have. You know, it's pretty common that actually cities don't allow any drinking in their park unless you have a permit. So even though we're in Wisconsin, there are quite a few departments in the state that their parks are restricted. But I can provide that information as well as having Chief Barnes come and talk. I think he loves to talk. He would love to come and educate. He's very, very good at that.
Okay, so I know Chair Gibbs has his hand up, but my next question would be, is there anything timely for the other three changes that they be forwarded onto the board this month, or can they all wait to be taken together?
They could be waited to taken together. The only timely one is Marathon Park. The registration, the online registration only, would need to be done before May 1st because we open the campgrounds May 1st. So that's when, like right now, you can do online registration, but you can't do it on site. So once the campground would open in May is typically when we allow the on-site.
I
ones.
also don't really see well, let's do Chair Gibbs's point, but I will say right now, I also don't really see a compelling reason to let those three sit back with our first concern. So we might just want to move those three on and we can wait to get more information on the first one if the committee is okay with that. But Chair Gibbs, you had a point.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that was going to be my point. I mean,
Okay.
is let's postpone the action and get the additional information that is being sought by the committee to have all of the information in front of it to make an informed decision on the alcohol portion of the ordinance and just pass the others. So removal of that alcohol portion of the ordinance and move forward the other three changes.
Okay, so besides item 19.03 sub 9 sub A through C, that would be the point we're keeping back, but the other changes, which include golf carts, the buggy section under 19.07 sub 5 sub C, and online registrations. I think those were the other three. So the alcohol one we would keep back and the other three we would put forward to the board, correct? Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Supervisor Straybeck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question on this online signing up for this. What if somebody's already there camping because they didn't know this happened, and then somebody else signed up online, and now you got two people that want the same spot? Who do you kick out, or who do you say, I'm just...
Well, we have staff that regularly monitors our campgrounds, especially Marathon Park. We have AFMs, which are assistant facility managers. So they're checking regularly when people are at sites. And if they notice somebody shouldn't be at a site if it's online only because there is no self-registration. That's what we're taking away. So someone can't just show up and take a site without going online and reserving it. So if there is a conflict and someone reserved it, that means the person that's in it hasn't reserved it and hasn't paid for it. And so our AFMs or our deputies work with them to either, if they want to register, they can right there, and then we would work with the other person to get them another site, or we'd make that person that set up basically illegally move to a different site.
Okay, thank you.
So, and just to give you, Jamie, explain the popularity behind that registration in May, because when I was on Park Commission, I remember it was very popular. Like sites would sell out very quickly online,
Well,
correct?
we used to open it January 1st, and that's for the year, and then we have lines and everything. With our new registration software that we implemented 2 years ago, you can now reserve your campgrounds 365 days ahead of time.
Okay.
So they're still very popular, and we still get a lot of people that register like now through May. But we already have a lot of registrations ahead of time for this next year that people have already been able to make. So that has reduced the rush and the amount of all the people at one time. But our online registration is working very, very well, and most of our registration is done that way.
Okay. Other questions? All right. So, anybody like to make a motion? Supervisor Seefeld?
I will make a motion for the Chapter 19 Park and Recreation, the one involving the golf carts and online registration and the horse and buggy, to forward that to the county board and leaving the alcohol one out for further debate.
Sure. Okay. Motion was made. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Sherfinsky. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. And then basically follow-up will be more information and then inviting Chief Barnes or a representative from the Wausau PD to come here then. Correct?
Yeah, I'll see what their schedules are, and then
Yep.
we'll get it on the agenda.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
Enjoy the party. Let's move on to,
Mr. Chair?
yeah.
Do we also perhaps, and I'm not sure this would be the right person, but do we also want perhaps the Corporation Counsel or someone else from the legal side also?
Sure. There's no
Or do
harm
we
in
want to
inviting
split
Mike.
that up?
What's that?
Or do we want to split that up? I'm just wondering if we want all of those people kind of at the table at the same time to have that discussion.
Sure. No, I don't think there's any harm in inviting Mike. That's fine. Yep.
And Corporation Counsel did review these updates already prior to us bringing them through the Park Commission. So he's seen it, he's aware of it, but I'll invite him and give him a background of where we're at and what we're looking for.
I think it's more or less if any of us would have a legal question
Yep.
and not that I don't trust that Chief Barnes or any of his people aren't, versed in the law. I'm sure they are, but having our corp counsel helps. So,
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anything else for, what were we on? 5C2. Anything else for 5C2? Okay. All right. Moving on. We have 5D1, Animal Waste Ordinance Update, possible agreement with Village of Maine.
I will take that. Thank you, Chair Longenhan. We did want to provide you with an update on our conversations with the Village of Maine. Myself and Administrator Leonard decided to put it under action. There may not be any action to actually take at this time, but we have been in conversation with the Village of Maine. They're very interested in adopting our animal waste ordinance and then entering into a service agreement with the county for administration and enforcement of that ordinance. We do have a provision in Chapter 1102 for municipalities to adopt our animal waste ordinance. And then we do also have provisions within Wisconsin statutes, obviously, to enter into agreements to administer and enforce certain ordinances on behalf of municipalities. So for the Village of Maine, their next step is they have invited us to come and give an educational presentation to their board on what our animal waste ordinance includes. And then they are going to go through their process to determine if they would like to pass a resolution adopting that ordinance. And then they would approach us for that service agreement. One of the reasons we wanted to bring this forward to you all was just to talk a little bit about the service agreement. It's premature until they actually decide to pass a resolution. But similar to service agreements we've entered into for law enforcement services, it would outline our responsibilities for both parties. We would be looking at costs that we would need to recover and how certain disputes and things would be, mediated between the two parties. At this time, we believe, based on when the Village of Maine was a town, they had about 10 to 15 landowners within that area that were under our animal waste ordinance previously. And so our best estimate is if we didn't enter into this agreement with them, we would be bringing 15 landowners or farms into our jurisdiction for enforcement and administration of that ordinance. I think I'll stop there and see what initial questions you have. Again, we do not have a service agreement or anything at this time, so. Yeah.
How negotiable is cost recovery? I mean, are we able to get full cost recovery for administration of that ordinance?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
We can certainly negotiate and ask for those types of terms. So we've
Sure.
talked internally with our staff and our business manager to discuss what we think it would take to administer this ordinance and enforce it. So we are coming up with some estimates related to that. A suggestion I would have too is possibly that we try it out at a certain cost recovery for the first couple years and then evaluate our true costs, because we think the first year will take some more effort on our part, obviously, to bring people back into the program. But after the first year, we actually believe the additional effort to our staff will be very minimal. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I see the village's point, because if they pay to have their own ordinance, have their own staff people, and then enforcement, I can see how that could be very costly to them, and it can be more of an efficiency for the taxpayer if they just go with our system. So my concern was the county's ability to realize those costs. So, questions? I honestly don't think there's a lot to go off of at this point, because there's no agreement in front of us. I mean, I appreciate it. I appreciate the update, because that's good to know what the other matter that's going on in the Village of Maine, which isn't on the agenda, so I'm not going to discuss it. But it makes sense of why they're interested in being a part of the ordinance. So, Supervisor Stravinsky.
Thank you. So I guess one question, and that would be, do you foresee any issues with being able to handle the additional workload of bringing those maybe 15 to 20 landowners back into underneath the ordinance and managing that process going forward?
So we believe the first year there would be some more effort, obviously, in implementing, sort of rolling it out, and that our costs would then reflect that. And then after that, we believe it would actually be very minimal additional effort for our staff and their time. So,
I guess a follow-up to that, then, you wouldn't anticipate having with that additional effort, effort doesn't mean additional staffing, correct? Like, that would all be able to
correct.
fit in under
We do not anticipate needing additional staff. So
Okay.
if that was the question, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm not saying that was Supervisor Stravinsky's question. That was my question, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Oh.
yes, that was
Okay.
Okay.
basically the staffing and just the amount of work involved.
Sure. Okay. Like I said, I don't think there's reason for action today. We'll just wait until we have more information.
Okay.
But thank you. All right, on to 6, educational presentations, outcome monitoring reports, and committee discussion. A, department updates, conservation planning, zoning, park rec and forestry, solid waste. A1, farmland preservation plan, update on draft plan and outreach.
So we do have our conservation analyst, Kirk Langvoss, on the line, and he's going to give the presentation. I'm going to pull it up so that we can get it loaded in the window here. Kirk?
So I just want to verify, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Hello?
we can hear you, Kirk.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Yeah, sorry. I'm right now at the North Central Technical College campus in Medford. We're doing farmer nutrient management training, teaching fertilizer management, manure management. So I stepped out from that, and so hopefully I'm in a bit of an echoey room. Are you able to hear me okay? I'm in a small classroom here.
Honestly, it's pretty clear, so I think you're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, I hear the echo coming around me, but okay, yeah. So just kind of a brief update. Won't take long, but you may recall back in September at the ERC meeting, we came before the committee with kind of announcement about working on updating our farmland preservation plan document and maps, and I'll get into just a bit here, just a quick refresher in just a second, but this is kind of follow-up just to kind of let you know where we are as a department, as a staff with getting the update worked on, and also outreach for public and town officials. So it looks like if you can slide the next slide up a little, please. So just kind of a quick refresher. What is the Farmland Preservation Program and what is the plan? It's part of the Maritime County Comprehensive Plan. It really is the portion of the comprehensive plan that addresses the agricultural elements of the plan. This is a kind of a portion of that plan. It's a standalone document, but it's incorporated into the comprehensive plan. It's required by the state of Wisconsin for our county and other counties in the state, and for the landowners to participate in other parts of the Farmland Preservation Program, including farmland preservation zoning, which this committee has heard of about before, agricultural enterprise areas, which is designations of vibrant areas of agriculture in the county that we want to continue to prioritize for agricultural use and development, farmland preservation agreements, which is a mechanism for landowners, farmers, and other rural property owners to claim state income tax credits for following good practices on their land, and then also, I guess I mentioned about the farmland preservation income tax credits. One of the main goals of the plan is, again, as a refresher, is it provides a local vision for agriculture and for agricultural development, and then also for agricultural enterprise areas in the county. And it really is as part of the comprehensive plan, it's really the guidance document to help the county and towns establish policies to protect farmland for the future. And again, why we are here is because the State Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection requires us to update the plan every 10 years. So we're in that 10-year update cycle right now. So go ahead and please forward. So just a little bit, again, of the update, where are we at, status of the farmland preservation update, and this is really where have we progressed since we last talked to you back at the September ERC meeting. Since then, I'm kind of the primary architect of the, so to speak, of the plan update, but other staff in the department have helped, and we've had some assistance from the North Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, but we've completed the draft document. It's about 60 pages, which includes about maybe 10 pages of maps of different aspects of the county, soil types, prime farmland, things like that. You'll see to the right of on the screen there, that's just it's not a fancy cover yet, it's still in draft form, but you'll see it's 2024 to 2033 for the following 10 years. What I would hope is that you would take a look at the plan, take a review of it, and definitely provide comments as a committee. It's very important to us to have your input, and it is out. Lori had graciously put the link out there, I believe this morning, to the plan, so you're able to review the document in its draft form at this point in time out on the Conservation Planning and Zoning Department's website. So go ahead with the next slide, please. Okay, so we talked about the document itself. It has been updated. I'm not going to say final, but it's in a fairly finalized state in these formatting, things like that. But also along with that is the drafts of the farmland preservation area maps. And every town in the county, so we've 39 towns, has its own individual map. The one, apologize, is so small. I'm trying to see, I believe that's town of Harrison that I put in the presentation. So that's an example. The green areas would be areas designated for farmland preservation. The brown areas would be not, and you can see in Harrison, a lot of that would be like the Harrison-Hewitt forest unit, so public lands. But basically, there's a map like this for every town, and then there will be a county-wide map showing those areas. And again, those are the areas that we've determined are prime for preservation for agriculture, at least for the next 10 years. And again, definitely encourage the committee to go ahead and review and comment to us on those. Again, your input is very important. So go to the next slide, please. So that's a bit of an update on the planning and the maps. With outreach, where are we at? Because, of course, for a plan like this, we want to have public input, town input, county input. Right now, we've initiated the input and information to the town officials on February 1st, we're scheduled to have a meeting at our Conservation Planning and Zoning Department office, an open house for all town officials. They've been invited with a basically we've sent out mailings to them, also to the clerks, and also sent the emails out with links to the plan, and also encourage those town officials to put the plan on their meeting agendas in the next couple months, so they have input if they would like from their town residents. And again, we'll take input also at any other time. This is just kind of a designated day where I believe we're running from 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 6 in the evening at our department, where town officials can come in and we can meet and collaborate in person, but we can definitely take input at any other time through phone or stopping by the office or email. Okay, go ahead, please. So also with outreach, of course, is the public or the stakeholder component, and we've initiated that. Basically, one of our prime ways is through the ERC meetings during the public comment portion. Landowners would have a chance to go ahead and provide any input and comment they would like to at that point in time. Again, we're also available anytime during regular office hours for them to come and stop at our department to talk to us and provide input that way. Go ahead, next slide, please. So just kind of rounding and wrapping things up here, looking ahead. So what's next? We basically have until the end of this calendar year to get the plan updated and approved. So a couple things on the calendar would be in February, taking input from public and town officials and ERC. We would go ahead and finalize the final draft of the plan and the maps. Then in March, ERC would go ahead and approve the final draft plan document and the maps. And then in March also, the Corporation Council has to basically certify that as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a component of the comprehensive plan. He will need to certify, the Corp Council office will need to certify that it's consistent with the county's comprehensive plan, which it's been crafted to be so. Then in May, our department, Conservation Planning and Zoning, will go ahead and send the plan update, the maps, and there's other required documentation. There's a application form we send to State Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection for their review. They have 90 days to review it, and then by August they would approve and certify the plan. Then it would be from their aspect or their side of things, it would be approved for another 10 years. Then in August or September, we would bring it back to the ERC for public hearing on the plan and maps, and then finally in October and November, we're looking at full county board approval on the plan and maps. So it sets us up for again getting everything done by or before the end of the calendar year. And I think that's all. If you go to the next slide, I believe that's all I had. That's the cow with glasses. So does anybody have any questions at this point in time? Otherwise, really wanted to just give you a brief update and really encourage you to take the time to go through and look at the plan, provide your input, your comments, your suggestions, definitely looking at getting that information from anybody that's interested. So any questions at all?
Questions from the committee? Chair Gibbs.
Just a question. So I know the last time we updated was 2023 was the last update, or 2013, excuse me.
Of the plan, 2013, yes.
2013. So I know there was some changes that were being offered at the legislature to the program as far as potential credits and the participation. Have we seen the participation over the last 10 years in the farmland preservation program increase or decrease, or do you potentially not know?
Yeah, good question. Good question. We've seen a slight decrease just because, and then we'll talk just briefly about why I think it's probably going to increase, but a slight decrease in the fact that there's what's called, I'll call them the runoff rules, but the agricultural performance standards and prohibitions long term. Basically, it's a set of state rules that farmers need to meet to follow good farm management practices. And there have been some farmers that were participating in the past that did not meet those conservation requirements and did not want to invest in whatever upgrades or whatever it might have taken. So we had, I'm gonna shoot from my hip. We had maybe 5 to 10% of participants drop out, probably 2013, 14, 15 in that area. However, that said, you did mention about the legislature. Governor Evers had just approved an increase. This is the first increase in 12 or 13 years in the tax credit It'll be going from basically $5 an acre in some areas to 10, and other areas that were 10 would go up to $12.50 per acre. I can get into the details if you would like more on that, but the credit has increased. I'm not going to say substantially, but at least it's increased hopefully to the point that it's going to be more of an encouragement for other individuals and landowners to participate.
Okay,
So did I answer his question?
Yep. Okay, other questions? Okay, so what I heard, Kirk, then is we should read the document, and I mean, between the committee, I think we'll be able to put this on future agendas, but between the committee discussion and then just contacting you directly, we'll be able to communicate our thoughts to you, correct?
Yeah, you of course can contact Lori or Kirsty or myself. Again, I'm sort of the primary, the point of contact, so to speak, for the update right now. So I'm the most familiar with that, but any of us are willing to go ahead and help you. But provide any comments, questions, whatever you may have. Definitely want to hear it from you.
Okay. All right, final thoughts. All right, seeing and hearing none. All right, we have 6A2 groundwater plan update.
Right, I'm going to invite Kirsty and Dale up here as well. Here. Almost there. So it's been about a year, maybe just slightly more, since we got the funding from the county board to start our groundwater plan update. So we did want to give you an update of where we're at and how sampling's been going, and talk a little bit about groundwater efforts in the county as a whole, some of the conversations we've had with our groundwater work group as well too. We did begin sampling in 2023. The first round was completed in November of 2023. And what we did, the approach we decided to take, was to start with a smaller area and sample first. And that was in part to sort of work out the kinks of the process of getting people signed up, getting their water collected and dropped off and tested. So we did start with the eastern side of the county. We ended up getting about 280 folks signed up to collect water samples and get those tested through our groundwater plan update. And through the collection efforts that went on in November, we got 238 of those samples back, which was great. We had probably 10 or so that will still get them in the next round. It just, some things didn't work out, and they missed our drop-off windows, so we will be following up. And we also, looking at the distribution of samples within those towns, we will be going back to some of them on the eastern side to try and get that target of what we want is 20 to 25 samples in every town in the county if we can get it. So we had some towns that fell a little short of that, so we're going to do a little more recruitment there early this year to round that out. We do expect the results from Wheel here any day now. In fact, they're starting to come in with some summary results, and those results to the landowners who got their wells tested, they'll start receiving those in the mail in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. And then they'll be sending the summary information to our department to start looking at as well, so we can start to share that with you all in terms of what we're seeing. In the meantime, we've also started what we're calling the second round of sampling, and basically that's the entire rest of the county. We decided after doing the first round, it went well enough, and we were just going to rip the Band-Aid off and get the rest of the sampling done so that we could keep on our schedule to get everything done in 2024. So as a reminder, we're trying to get to about 1,000 tests across the county. So right now we have about 600 people signed up in the southern and western parts of the county, and we have a few more weeks of recruitment going on before we'll finalize that list and get it over to Wheel. And then we're looking at February is when those folks would be collecting their water and dropping it off at our locations for sampling. And at this time, we expect that all sampling related to the groundwater plan update is going to be completed, and we should be getting results from Wheel in the April to May 2024 timeframe. In terms of other work we'll have going on this year related to the plan, with the results starting to come in, we are going to be scheduling workshops in the community to give education to people as it relates to the results they received, the summary analysis that we're getting, and what's going on with water quality. And we also will use those opportunities to outreach with the public and stakeholder groups and do engagement to learn about what their concerns are as it relates to groundwater in our county. We want to identify those concerns and start to work towards drafting strategies related to long-term management of water quality in Marathon County. And then, of course, our intent is to create a plan that we would bring back to the county board for comment and consideration of adoption. I'm going to hand it over to Dale to talk a little bit about, right behind you. Okay. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the other groundwater efforts we have going on right now.
Okay, just wanted to review briefly the DNR expanded well compensation grant that's been available for a while. The background on it is it's federal ARPA funds that have been able to support that, and DNR has been able to expand the criteria by which they will help private well owners to replace their well or seek treatment options. We're really glad to say that Marathon County's been able to jump on this quickly, and we're number 2 to Portage County. If we can catch up and pass them, we'll do that. But in getting wells replaced or the treatment systems put in, this has really helped out a number of individuals, and it shows there. We've had 19 wells that have benefited from the grant and from outreach, and there's another 7 of them that are in the process of getting their applications approved through DNR, or are at our Conservation Planning and Zoning Office and are working on getting their applications submitted. As far as utilization, there have been 16 families that have been helped with a well treatment or replacement. We've had two of our rural businesses and a church. In terms of the contaminants that we're seeing that exceed standards, uranium, beryllium, arsenic, nitrate, which is fairly common, bacteria, and manganese. And as I said, it's most often associated with nitrate. And one of the great things about this is the 2 businesses in the church have had long-standing issues with nitrate, always above or below a little bit of the DNR's 10 micrograms per liter concentration. And this has resolved it for them. They've been able to replace their wells and no longer have to deal with that. That's where my part ends. I get to turn over to Kirsty.
Sure. So this map here is just a brief overview of where the locations of the wells are that received ARPA funding. And so as you can see, it's not necessarily just in a concentrated area in the county. They are scattered throughout the county. And to build off of what Dale was saying, it's very obvious to us as staff that having these grant funds available to serve as a resource for people who had issues, having that grant fund available is absolutely the catalyst to these people finally fixing the chronic issues that they have had going on, because that was certainly a barrier that was in place that prevented them from doing that earlier. So you guys can feel free to take a look at that. It's been extremely rewarding to work with many of these landowners. Some of these landowners were able to apply for the grant themselves, but many of them, our conservation and health department staff, have been able to work with to fill out the application and to help them get their well tested to get all the information that they need. We've received a lot of positive feedback back from those landowners, and I also just want to give a shout out to our conservation technician, Andy Shep, who is joining us virtually today, but Andy has done a fantastic job working with our rural landowners when they've been calling our office with concerns. He's actually even just made a lot of traction with our landowners in various parts of the county that we would call, plainclothes faith, people that maybe necessarily didn't even have their well tested ever before. And he's been really reaching into these communities and working with some of these maybe traditionally underserved communities to access these resources as well, which has been wonderful to see. And that leads into what we wanted to tell you a little bit about our approach to dealing with rural landowners and their well issues. So we're really trying to get some traction on this phrase. We're calling it the marathon method. So if anyone wants to go on Twitter right now and use hashtag marathon method, you can go for it. Dale and I were interviewed by the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel a couple of weeks ago, and we told them we're trying to get traction, put it on the front page here, the marathon method. And we say that kind of jokingly, but honestly, it's a really unique approach to reaching our rural citizens and educating them about groundwater. So we just wanted to take a minute to let you know how we've been doing this. So this has been prior to our testing that we've been doing for the groundwater plan. So this all initiated close to a year, well, actually a little over a year ago now, because the ARPA well funds became available January 1st of 2023. And so we knew when that $10 million was becoming available, we're like, that money has our name on it. We need that here in Marathon County. So we hit the ground running. One thing that we started to do is when we knew that there was a contaminated well somewhere, because we worked with the landowner to get their well tested, we began notifying neighbors that they should also consider getting their well tested. So that would frequently include letters, but we also did some door knocking as well. With those neighbors, we would provide instructions and also resources on how to get their well tested. So I feel like we did go above and beyond, because Andy from our department would even say, I will come to your house and I will bring a bottle to your house, you fill it with water, give me a check to bring to the health department lab, and, these citizens are paying for it, but Andy would literally come to their house, get the sample. So we have been trying our hardest to make sure there are no barriers in place to getting people safe drinking water in Marathon County, and people have been very appreciative about that. When we are finding hotspots or, multiple wells in one area that have contaminants, we've really been trying to take a holistic approach to figuring out what could be causing this contaminant. We don't just want to say, you really need to put in a new well. We want to say, well, what's causing the issue here so we can fix that problem? And so it's been working really well to work with our POUTS team, or our staff that are over septic systems. They have tons and tons of data related to soil tests in that area, right? Because everyone that puts a septic system in have to get a soil test, so they know the depth of the groundwater, they know the types of soil there, they know all of those limiting factors. So we are able to work with them to analyze whether or not the problem could be from failing septic systems in the area. And our conservation staff, we also have, expert advice to know, could there be something happening on the land use there related to something that's being spread on a nearby field, or could there be fractured bedrock or something that is leading to that contaminant? Also working with the health department and having Dale work with us on these groundwater issues, he's able to provide us with extremely unique perspectives that we're just not trained in as conservation staff. So it's been a lot of people working together. And we're really trying to integrate nutrient management planning and conservation practices into what we're recommending as kind of a permanent fix to these well contamination issues. So if we see a well that, for example, has high nitrates, of course, very commonly it is surrounded by agricultural land use, that's where that tends to be coming from. And so what we do is we look at the surrounding fields. Since we do have over 60% of our cropland in Marathon County under a nutrient management plan, we are usually quickly and easily able to figure out who operates that land and if it's under a nutrient management plan. If they do not have a nutrient management plan, we are able to offer them cost share money to develop a nutrient management plan and better educate them on, the proper rates that they can apply manure and fertilizer, and also what the proper well setbacks are for applying those onto the land as well. We're also working really hard to encourage landowners to implement conservation practices near their well. So it's common, especially on, if you think of county roads, we usually have houses lining those county roads, right? And then behind the house, sometimes even 20, 30 feet, there's the well, and then there's an ag field usually, right? So in those scenarios, we're encouraging them to partner together with their operator if they rent out that acreage or if it's a neighbor or something, to say, can we consider putting in a buffer strip where my property ends and where you're, working the field? Can we put in a 30, 50-foot buffer strip? Maybe it's a pollinator strip, maybe it's something that's harvestable, but there are so many programs out there where people can get paid to put that buffer strip in. And so we're working with them to get those conservation practices on the landscape, have it work out well for the operator and the landowner, and have it be a win-win for clean water. Also, we're finding out there's just a lot of misinformation out there in terms of how close people can be spreading to wells, what they should be doing, what's the landowner's rights, what's the operator's rights. So it's wonderful to see these conversations unfolding around the county and have this education happening. So after we are done, working with our staff and the landowners, what we end up doing is we connect the landowners to grant money for well remediation. So the ARPA funds, you can make up to $100,000 as a family and qualify for their funds, which is great because that's not very frequently, the limiting factor. So we're thankful that they increased that because previously the well comp funds were just a $45,000 limit, which was hard to meet. And so we're able to work with people to fill out the applications, send it in, and we have good relationships with the DNR team that's reviewing those applications. So they hear from us a lot, and we check in with them to make sure we get that money for Marathon County. So just looking ahead as more of our work in groundwater unfolds, I'm very sad to say that we've recently been informed by the DNR that they are expecting their ARPA well compensation funds to run out here in early 2024. It's absolutely wonderful that those funds have been used so quickly by Wisconsin residents, but man, did that $10 million go away fast. And so they had sent all conservation and health department staff an email a couple weeks back saying, at this point, pretty much all of the money is spoken for, and we expect the money to officially be gone here in the first quarter of 2024. What we do anticipate here locally is that since we are seeing so many more people involved in testing now, we expect the need for well remediation to begin to increase here, just because people will know that they have an issue with their well. And so we are concerned that there will be limited funding options available for these citizens after that ARPA money is gone here shortly. And so we've just kind of begun to brainstorm as a Marathon County Groundwater Work Group, what can we do to try to get ahead of this? Because we have a method, we've found a way to work with people and connect them to resources, but when that resource is gone, what is next? And so our groundwater work group is comprised of about 20 different people, local people and statewide people. Supervisor Ritter and Supervisor Robinson are both on our groundwater work group. And they had just encouraged us to connect with you all too, and just to plant a seed and think about an opportunity that could perhaps come up locally in terms of setting aside Marathon County ARPA funds for perhaps something smaller that we could offer each citizen with a well contamination. So we have seen this happen somewhat locally with our neighbors in Portage County. So they harnessed some of their ARPA funds and created their own county ARPA well compensation grant program. And what they did there is they put a limit of $2,000 per family to go through the county, and theirs specifically is for nitrates, since that's where they're seeing most of their contamination problems from. And with $2,000 to $3,000, almost every household is able to get a point of use reverse osmosis system. So that's what you can see here in this picture. That just means it's essentially one faucet that you're treating for nitrates. So probably the kitchen sink, right? And so, we've been seeing colossal estimates for full house reverse osmosis systems. We don't know if it's because some of these water companies know that these DNR funds are available, but some people are having to pay between $20,000 to $30,000 to remediate, their full house water system through reverse osmosis. So, of course, that's just very unattainable for most families. So to be able to, provide one place of access for families, we feel like it's something that would be doable, and we would essentially, if it's something that you would consider, we could essentially mimic the way the DNR ARPA well program is set up with all the same limits on income and process and everything like that. There would be no need to reinvent the wheel. There are 2 other small pots of funding available that we also just have on our radar, and those are loans through the USDA and then community block loans. Those are extremely restrictive, though, to income, and those are both down at the $40,000 to $45,000 maximum income per family. So those are still an option. They allow less money per family, and again, that income barrier is there. But that's kind of what we're thinking going forward, and we really look forward to continuing to talk with you all about how this is going, and discussing the results with you. But overall, I feel like there's just been so much energy and momentum, not only with staff here at the county working in groundwater, but I cannot tell you how many hundreds of meaningful conversations we've had with residents around the county related to groundwater. We even had the opportunity to do some door knocking in areas of the east side of the county where we had low participation rates. And, it's just very evident that this sort of thing has never been done before in Marathon County, and it hasn't been on a lot of our landowners' radar to get their wells tested. So this is really great timing, and I think it's a really great decision that you all made to support this. So thank you for that.
Questions, comments? Supervisor Trafinski.
One question. The 19 wells that have been involved in the program so far, do you have an estimate of the dollars that have been expended, in that remediation process?
Mm-hmm. Sure. I can answer that, and then Dale can chime in too. The average spent per family over those 19 wells was about, I shouldn't say family because there are 2 businesses and churches, but it was $13,000. Yeah, 13 to 14,000 per recipient. That's the word I should be using, per recipient of that. And we are at about $270,000 that we've received total, with 7 applications processed, and we probably have about 7 applications that we are working on getting information to turn in yet. So,
one thing I think we've talked about, though, is the DNR is, I don't know if pushing is the right word, but through their program, they are encouraging landowners towards more full construction and things like that. So I don't know if that's the word, but they're definitely going for whole systems versus point systems.
That's just a policy that they've had for a long time. The idea being, if you replace the well and you get safe, non-contaminated water, there aren't any treatment systems to maintain, filters to replace, observation or monitoring that has to occur. It's use your tap.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Chair Gibbs.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Dale. The question I guess I have, do we know how many of the wells that are failing are potential or have contaminants that are the wells' fault themselves, meaning they're shallow hand-dug wells? I know when I was growing up, we had a short 22-foot hand-dug well or a failed casing system that is allowing surface water in that's creating the contaminant?
Right. In order to decrease that as a factor as much as possible, through our targeted study where UWSP provided us with a list of people to target, we are only, for the most part, testing wells that were constructed in 1985 to modern day. 1985 is when well construction reports were required. So, we can assume these are going to be a little bit newer wells to begin with, but also if there is an issue based on construction, then we're able to have the full construction report and try to rule that out. So we have a sprinkling of older wells in there too. But you're right, that can be a common factor is the construction itself.
Other question? Yes, Supervisor Beck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering on the bacteria level and stuff, how often do they, instead of replacing the well or whatever, just encourage just shocking the well? They dump in the stuff and it just pumps for a while? Anything like that?
Yeah, that's usually the first option. If there isn't anything else that necessitates a concern, a contaminant concern, they're going to say shock the well, see what we can find out with subsequent samples. Most of the wells that they were looking at, a regular just coliform unsafe wasn't going to get you into the program. You had to have E. coli positive well water results. So those that were funded because of bacteria were because they had E. coli contamination.
Other questions? All right, well, we're excited to get that data back. That's something very exciting to look forward to in the spring. And it's good to see a lot of interest in that testing program. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. We look forward to hearing more. All right. 6.3, forthcoming petition from the Town of Plover, text amendment to the Marathon County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 17.401.B sub 1.
Okay, so this is just an update for you guys. This petition will be on the March 5th ERC meeting. The Town of Plover submitted a petition to amend Chapter 17 as it relates to shipping containers allowed as accessory structures in residential districts. Currently, they are not permitted in urban residential, rural residential, and low-density residential. They are, I believe, a conditional use in real estate and then permitted in agriculture and commercial industrial type districts. So the Town of Plover submitted that and it was sent out to the towns on December 22nd for their review. So we're hoping to get a good amount of input from the towns as far as what their feeling is about allowing those. So that will be coming up on the March 5th ERC meeting.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to make an initial comment that we had some extensive discussion about this item a couple years ago, and I with the permitting for the larger districts, that makes sense to me. You know, for the smaller ones with the residential, I'm of course going to defer to wait till I hear from the towns, but I have some concerns with that. I want us to get engaged with the towns first and hear from them, but you know, I already hear I just can already hear the complaints about so-and-so's got their storage container too close to the lot line and there's a small range war brewing because of that. Or God forbid they stack them. So I also don't understand why people just can't build a shed these days. But like I said, I want to wait to hear more from the towns first. But yeah, any questions? Supervisor Shafinsky.
Just as an aside, Schofield has decided to get involved in that discussion as well. So
really,
it seems to be a topic of conversation, and maybe part to address your question of why.
Yeah.
Depending on how and who and what your connections are, you know, you can be looking at a shipping container $3,000 to $5,000 to $6,000. So they can be incredibly inexpensive.
Just building off of that, and as far as zoning, we do get a fair amount of calls requesting the ability to put a shipping container on some of these properties. Marathon County's makeup of even a lot of these smaller lots are still rural. Mm-hmm. They're just zoned as a residential based on their lot size. So as Supervisor Shafinsky stated, they are fairly inexpensive, and that was one of the reasons that the Town of Plover brought this petition forward. The difference with this one is that the initial one was for back in 2021, I believe, is when they just wanted to change it in Plover, which obviously can't happen being under county zoning because
they'd have to have their own zoning. Yeah.
Yep. This one would be for a conditional use in those residential districts.
So it isn't based on, and I guess I should actually read the text amendment then, but it isn't, they're just allowable, there would be a permitting process for it.
Right. They had several discussions and they decided to bring forth the idea of it being a conditional use application in order to put that on there to accommodate some of those smaller lots that are residential that are out in the very rural area, such that exist in Plover.
But that one's, let's say that I lived in I have I'm fortunate enough, I live in Farmland Pres. I live in a parcel that's zoned Farmland Pres. So the way I see it, we've got plenty of acres. If I want to go out and buy a storage container, and I go put that behind the house, back behind the field on the tree line, nobody's going to see it. It's not going to be close to somebody's lot line. My neighbors aren't going to care. But if it was residential, I could come down to, and if it was a conditional use permit, I could go down to CPZ, drop $1,800 on the countertop, say, give me 3 permits, go stack 3 high on my neighbor's lot line, and then I got a problem.
That's where that conditional use process and the Board of Adjustment comes in.
Because I think even if you had the permitting, I think you would still almost have to set a limit. But yeah, Supervisor Princey.
Yeah, and to build off of your comments, you can stay the idea of stacking them, and all of a sudden you've got something that's a real problem. Because of my involvement in the building industries over the years and whatnot, I have seen some really amazing projects that have been accomplished with these, that where people have stacked 3, 4 of them, and they've created something that really is far from being objectionable, is actually a very nice little development. So yeah, it's something where you take that, people have taken that as a starting point. They spray foam the inside, the outside to provide insulation, and then they provide cladding, and all of a sudden they've created a very nice structure. So I think it behooves us to get ahead of the game and kind of think about what is allowable and not allowable, and provide some guidance. So because it is definitely a resource that's out there, and I think we're going to see more and more usage of it. And one of the things I think that we would want to include in our discussions is, how do you identify shipping containers as opposed to old over-the-road semi-trailers? Because we see a bunch of those laying around at times too, and those have a totally different situation.
Mm-hmm. So as you guys review it and you talk to your constituents, keep in mind that shipping containers are considered an accessory structure, just the same as if you were to build a shed. So they have to follow all the setbacks. They need to follow the height restrictions in the district. The residential districts are 24 feet high at the peak of any structure. There are lot coverage standards as well. So you get these very small lots. There's lot coverage standards for buildings and things like that could prevent a massive amount of these being placed on one property, on small properties.
Okay.
But those concerns you raised are things to discuss and think about as you review that petition.
So this went out to the towns, right?
Yep.
Okay.
December 22nd, it was sent out to the towns.
So we'll probably get comments within the next month and a half or so.
Yep, we're hoping to get as many as possible. We did inform Plover that they should also try to engage as many towns as possible, because getting no comments is almost worse than getting the negative comments, because then we really don't know what the people of Marathon County really want to see as far as that ordinance. So.
And if there were no comments, my next suggestion would be send out a survey to every town chair in the county through email or postcard, whatever, and I want responses,
Right.
Like, you need additional engagement.
And it is available on the website as well. It's on our zoning page with the rest of our ordinances.
Okay. All right. Anything else for the time being? Otherwise, we'll get more information, of course. All right. Thank you, Garrett. We are on to 6A4, POUTS Maintenance Program and POUTS Funding Updates.
All right. I just wanted to give the committee a kind of a brief update of some of the work we've been doing on the POUTS, in the POUTS program. This past year, we did have some challenges with our maintenance program, which we're mandated to have by the state. And it's essentially how we track people maintaining their septic systems, making sure that they're getting pumped at a reasonable time frame. The state requires every 3 years your septic system be pumped, or when it's over 1/3 full of sludge. So we have a tracking process in Marathon County to kind of track who's up for maintenance, and we notice them. The way our old maintenance program was set up, we noticed them in batches, essentially. So, for example, a group of them would get notices in May, a group of them would then get notices in June, then July and August. So they were kind of set up by quarter almost. One of the challenges we had is, since they didn't all get their notices at the same time, if they didn't maintenance their system, let's say they got their notice in May, but they didn't maintenance their system till August, that next cycle that they get in where maintenance is due again, they're in the August batch, which turns out our August batch got extremely large, meaning that systems weren't getting maintained until the end of the year, giving them less time to get them maintained before ground freezes. So what we did is we actually met with a lot of the pumping professionals and maintainer professionals in Marathon County. We had a meeting and kind of discussed the situation. Surrounding counties, a lot of them are on a 1 batch cycle for notices. So what that means is if you're due for maintenance in 2023, or we'll use 2024, you'll get noticed at the beginning of 2024 saying you need to get your system pumped by such and such date. That way, they get noticed at the beginning of the year. They have a longer period before the freezing happens or before conditions are hard for pumpers and maintainers to get to their system. So essentially, they're going to get the same amount of notices. They'll get a first notice, which will be in April and May. They'll go out April and May with a deadline of August. Then August, if they haven't pumped by then, they'll get a second notice and a third notice, and eventually we have our stepped enforcement process with the citations. But essentially, it's a very minimal change. It's just a matter of people are getting more time to service their system, and it actually allows our Ascent program, which is it's also the county's tax records. We use that to it runs our maintenance program. It tracks things. It was more designed to track that 1 batch that we're going to versus having the multiple batches. There's a lot less back-end work that needs to happen to track it. So our maintenance program will actually be more accurate with this change as well. So it's more flexible for the property owner. It's easier for CPZ, and it also helps relieve some of the maintainers and pumpers' stresses that they have trying to fit people in to maintain their systems later on in the year. So with that said, one of the things we also found and we're looking into right now is potentially adjusting our septic system failure to maintain citation. Right now, it's currently sits at right around $200.50. The thought about increasing it, a lot of the times when a system gets pumped, and this is we can bring data forward to you guys when at a future meeting, but just to give you an idea, a septic system being maintained is generally, depending on the company, right around $350. So it's almost cheaper for the individual to pay the citation versus get their system maintained, which oftentimes is something that they're looking at. They're saying, well, if I pay $200.50, I won't have to pay the 300 some to get my systems maintained. How our code is written, just because they pay the citation, they still need to get their system maintained, but it does prolong it. They get put on another notice patch for the next year. It's kind of how our system tracks it. It's not an instantaneous track. So it would help to have a little bit higher, heftier fee there up front to be like, I could spend my money on a citation, or I could spend my money on getting my system maintained. And ultimately, we would much rather see that money going to getting their system maintained than the court system. I mean, it just benefits the environment and benefits the property owner. So that's kind of the idea behind there. We'll bring back figures of surrounding counties, what the estimated pumping cost is, things like that for you guys to consider when we do bring that stuff forward to you. But I just wanted to let you know that that's something we're working on right now, trying to put together and get ready for you guys. I do have one other thing, but is there any questions regarding the maintenance program or the citation?
Thank you, Chair. Relative to the maintenance, do you have any data that you are able to share with the owners that kind of helps to build a case that says, we've told you need to maintain it. Maintenance is, $300, maybe $350, $400 every 3 to 4 years type of a deal. But that builds the case that says, if you try and skip out of this, you're only going to be successful for so long. You're going to pay the fine, but 5 years or 10 years from now, you're going to be looking at X number of thousands of dollars or likelihood of replacement of the system. Is there, are you successful in building some sort of a case that helps make that more of a carrot than a stick?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is something that we brought up this year, as well as what we could do a little bit better on is the actual education of the public as far as things like that. What helps your septic system, what hurts your septic system. Because I feel like as soon as people start getting an understanding that what they're doing could potentially limit the life of their system, causing the average mound system right now is right around 25,000. So if you don't take care of your system, $300 versus 25,000 is a hefty difference. So that's a very good point, and that is something we're trying to put through, and how to best get that information to the public. I know we do have some informational pamphlets that we send out with the notices. I will say some of those papers, we all get junk mail in the mail sometimes, so they tend to, if they don't stand out enough or they stand out too much, they kind of get pitched. So trying to find different ways, whether it's going to town meetings and talking to the town board, different town boards like that, just trying to get that information out. We are looking at different avenues to educate.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
Yep, I have one.
Okay. Well, yeah. You have
sorry.
one more thing.
I do
No,
have
you're
one more update regarding the McDevco loan program. I did just want to kind of update you guys where that program is at. We've currently fully funded 2 official loans right now. So 2 loans were fully processed and paid out. We have right now sitting on the docket, we have 5 approved applications, essentially meaning since it's winter, they'll probably wait till spring, summer until these systems are ready to be installed to be funded, but they are ready to be funded. And then 2 additional ones that are on the dock that are very close to having that approval letter saying that they'll receive funding. So we have, just kind of in summary, we have 2 that have been paid out, so people have already received loans from McDevco. We have right around 7 kind of right at the knocking at the door until the weather warms up and they can get the systems in to fund those. And then we have, I can't even really give you a number how many people we've sent the information to, so I'm sure more applications will be popping in. We get a lot of calls about McDevco, and we redirect them to McDevco to kind of talk through the loan process and whatnot. But it is working. It is. We've also made it clear that McDevco can be tied in with Wisconsin Fund, and the Wisconsin Fund was back this year for funding of next year. And just to give you a rough estimate, this doesn't mean we're guaranteed to get these individuals funding, but right around 17 individuals will be sending to the state to try and get McDevco or Wisconsin funding. So with a total, I looked it up, I calculated out if we were able to get all the funding necessary that we're requesting from them, it would be right around $88,000. So wow. Which would be awesome in the septic replacement world. It's one of those are the systems that are it's a mandate to have them if you live in a rural area, and they're very expensive to replace, so any help that we can find and get to individuals, all the better. So that was my update. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Yeah. Oh, that's good news. That's some good news to start the year that people are using it. Wow. Cool. Yeah, questions? All right. Thank you for the good info, Shad. Appreciate it. All right. 7, policy issues, discussion, possible committee determination. We got nothing. 8, next meeting, January 30th, 2024, 3 p.m., Assembly Room, future agenda items. A, committee members are asked to bring ideas for future discussion. B, announcements, requests, correspondence. Nada?
Don't believe we have any this month.
Okay. I just want to say thank you for switching up your schedules, staff and committee members to be able to make it today. Greatly appreciate, so we can continue our regular flow of business. And this is probably the last day of the week that I can say this without being looked at funny, but Happy New Year. So, all right. Item number 9, folks. Motion by Seefeld, second by Ritter. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thanks, everybody.
Don't run away.
Oh, yeah. Paperwork. Yeah. You got a pen, Garrett? Oh, thank you.